All right. Ooh, we're back here. We are back. Mike and Evan are back for the second round of our Ozzy Osbourne song draft. And remember, these are Ozzy Osbourne songs. They do not include Black Sabbath. They are Ozzy Osbourne solo work. So we're doing this in three stages. The first stage was the starting lineup, where we picked our Ray Allens and our Michael Jordans and our Giannis Antetokounmpos. And now we are in the second round, which is our backup, where we're talking about like our Steve Kerrs of the world here. And then so this is the second round, second stage, I should say, and which of course will be followed by our specialist / bench warmer round at a later time. But Evan, Ozzy Osbourne, are you ready to select 5 more songs to your team?
I'm flying high again, as they say, and ready for round 2 of the Ozzy Osbourne draft.
Yeah.
And I think I've got a few more surprises that you'll enjoy, little deviations. I've collected some feedback, as I shared with you during the pre-pod, as we call it. Mm-hmm. And, we had some interesting discussion around the conspicuous absence of Crazy Train. Some of the feedback I got, there was some surprise at some of the deeper cuts that showed up. I guess in particular, Revelation Mother Earth, one of our 2 listeners,
yes,
who is my brother, was kind of surprised about that. And I told him, hey, it is what it is. I stand by that as my second pick. You got to go into those archives and take another deep, close listen to Revelation Mother Earth. But it did bring up this point, which I want to bring up again, because I want to see how how the next 10 picks fare in light of this consideration, which is that it's hard. It's almost like there's kind of 2 broad draft objectives. There's drafting your current Ozzy bangers, right? So the ones you're most likely to throw on today. And then there's drafting like your favorite Ozzy songs of all time. And there's not necessarily perfect overlap between those 2 lists.
That's true. That is the tension there. And I would even add another layer where you kind of want to give some eras their due.
Yeah.
And just, you want to acknowledge them, like the Jake E. Lee era, for example. You want to give that era its due, even if that wasn't the best of Ozzy's work.
Right.
Yeah, but I definitely agree, and it's because and on the point about wanting to the tension between selecting a new song and one of your historical favorites is in one of our pre-pod discussions, I think for the last one, I was talking about how I like Blizzard of Oz so much more than Diary of a Madman, even though of course like Over the Mountain and Flying High Again are 2 of my favorite Ozzy songs. But since we had this idea for this podcast, I've really started diving into Diary of a Madman more. And there's some really good stuff on there, which I didn't come in to appreciate until like the last month or so. And
yeah, definitely. Same.
Yeah. So like there are some songs, and same thing with like, maybe there might be a selection here too from No Rest to the Wicked, which are songs which I, never paid much mind to, but in putting together this list, I listened to them, and they're not historical favorites, but I'm really appreciating how good those songs are now. So
there's a few little side exercises to this draft that I feel like we could do. Like I'm curious to hear just like your ranking of the top 5 Ozzy records.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, we that is true. I mean, do you have that list off your head right now?
I think I could do it right now. Yeah. I think.
While you're saying that, or just while you're thinking that, I could list 5 off, but I would probably change them as I thought about it. I want to say in doing this exercise, listening to some Ozzy albums from start to finish in a way I hadn't previously done or hadn't done in a long time. Is again, I also have a deeper appreciation for some album tracks that aren't really getting much radio play, but they contribute. So I would say like on No More Tears, for example, or a song like I Don't Want to Change the World. is just a good. I mean, maybe it wouldn't be one of my top 30, but it would be just a great album track. So anyway, or you smirked a little bit. Maybe that's going to be a selection here. Maybe that was your tell. But let's go. What would you say your top 5 Ozzy albums are?
It's real close for the top 2 between Blizzard and Diary. Again, I think like greatest of all time, I'm going Blizzard of Oz. Current favorite, Diary of a Madman. So I'll make a choice and just say Blizzard of Oz is number 1. Diary of a Madman is number 2. No More Tears is an easy number 3. I personally am going to put No Rest for the Wicked at number 4 and Osmosis at number 5, excluding both Jake E. Lee records from the top 5. Now that's controversial. You know, my one of our listeners was criticizing my kind of whole like dismissive attitude of like Ultimate Sin and Bark at the Moon. I just don't think those are very good records, especially Ultimate Sin. But there's healthy disagreement to be had there.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you were to combine the best tracks from Bark at the Moon and Ultimate Sin, you could make an argument that like the 10 best tracks from those together maybe would be in the top 5 of an Ozzy one. I probably like Jake E. Lee era more than you do, just based on our discussions.
It's good. It's still good music. Like and there's a certain quality about like that was Ozzy's fat glam period, and that's sort of a funny, you know, goofy aesthetic. He was at his most sort of theatrical, in terms of his music videos and stage show. So that's an interesting point. But I just don't like to listen to the songs that much. I don't even think the hit song, like Shot in the Dark, I don't think is a very good song. Even though that's sort of the big banger off of Ultimate Sin. Bark at the Moon is an awesome song, but I think it's kind of an anomaly. And then there's another decent one off Bark at the Moon that I actually like a lot, which may even make my top 15. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, Bark at the Moon doesn't sound anything really like the Bark at the Moon's track doesn't really sound anything like off that record and the Ultimate Sin. In terms of my top 5, I mean, I would agree. I mean, your top 5 are my top 5. I would probably, I mean, right now at this very second, I would probably go Blizzard of Oz 1, No More Tears 2. Yeah. I mean, Osmosis 3, Diary of a Madman 4, and then No Rest for the Wicked 5. But as we were talking, we were talking, I would say like Diary of a Madman is really, really sharpening, going up the list. I would say Diary of a Madman, like in comparison to Blizzard of Oz, I don't think it quite reaches the same heights as Blizzard with Revelation, Mother Earth, and Mr. Crowley. I think it comes very close with Flying High Again Over the Mountain, but I also feel like even though the ceiling isn't quite as high, the floor is higher than on Blizzard of Oz. Yeah, that's a good point. Because I mean, like Blizzard of Oz has some tracks like No Bone Movies, which not a huge fan of.
I kind of like No Bone Movies.
It's kind of a fun song.
Let's see if it even made my potential top. No, it didn't. I don't want. Okay, so we got much more work to do here. So we might want to jump into it. I know that at the end of the 3 draft segment saga, we are going to discuss some potential trades too.
Yes.
And maybe even a discussion of how these two teams might stack up against one another, given the relative strengths of the different songs that we've chosen. So lots more to come. We're going to sort of I think keep it crisp to the point today. We've got to draft our key bench players, our second string. And as you said, these are not your Michael Jordans, but definitely, your Steve Kerrs and your Manu Ginobili's, and very important players, Hall of Famers even. And so we need to have this discussion.
Yeah, I mean, I would say we could even make a point of maybe Ray Allen coming off the bench for the Miami Heat later in his career.
Right.
And then hitting a shot in Game 6 against the Spurs to eventually win the championship. Okay, just a quick recap of our starting fives though. So Evan won the toss and got the number 1 overall pick. So his starting five: Flying High Again, Revelation Mother Earth, Mama I'm Coming Home, No More Tears, and I Don't Know. My starting five: we have Mr. Crowley, Bark at the Moon, Over the Mountain, See You on the Other Side, and Goodbye to Romance. So today we're going to be doing picks 6 through 10, so rounds 6 through 10. Evan won the toss and got the first overall pick. Also means that he gets the next pick, which is 11th overall. So Evan, let's get this draft going again.
Okay.
What is the first backup bench player that you are selecting?
Okay, so that's how we're doing it. So you don't. So I guess I was under the assumption that you were going to get the first pick for the second round, but I want to do it the way it works in sports. So
yeah. So the way it works in sports is that you would select.
Okay, so I'm going to select. So I'm going to make my 6th overall pick, and it's going to be also off of Diary of a Madman, and the song is "You Can't Kill Rock and Roll." This was tempting for me to put in my top 5. It's my second favorite song off of Diary of a Madman. It's another longer song. I just think it has some of like the best rock and roll riffs of all time. It's got a little bit more of a like Black Sabbath feel to it. It also is interesting because it sounds kind of ahead of its time. If you listen to it, especially the intro, you almost feel like this song could have shown up on a record like No More Tears, which came out almost 10 years later and had a very different guitar player playing for it. But this is a good song. Again, one of my favorites. It's, again, like we've talked about, it probably wouldn't have shown up on my top 5 or 10 if you'd asked me, 20 years ago when I was first getting really into Ozzy. But it's a song that I've grown to appreciate very much over the last 5 to 10 years, I'd say. And like I said, definitely like a sort of like signal piece off that record, and just a super fun song, fun concept, fun song, killer riffs, great bridge, solid guitar solos from Randy. I'm making it my number 6 pick, and it's You Can't Kill Rock and Roll off of Diary of a Madman.
Okay. So this is where we're going to have a bit of a deviation. Right now I'm looking at a spreadsheet that I have where I've put on 35 possible selections for a Ozzy for my draft. You Can't Kill Rock and Roll is not on my list.
Well, let me ask you this. When was the last time you heard You Can't Kill Rock and Roll?
That would have been in the last couple of weeks. I'm going to have to give it another listen. It just never, that song, from when I've heard it, it just never excited me. And this never excited me. And as a general rule, like rock and roll songs by rock and roll artists about like you can't kill rock and roll. Like rock and roll is here to stay.
Yeah.
Is I don't know, that's never been one of my favorite subjects for a song.
Interesting. Well, that is surprising coming from someone with such a great love of Ozzy and AC/DC, because I feel like that's like half of AC/DC's song.
Yeah, no, you're right.
How great rock and roll is.
And you know what? We're saying this. I'm going to immediately contradict myself because one of my favorite AC/DC songs is "Rock and Roll Ain't Noise Pollution." But there's I don't know. It's a song I've just never fully been able to get into. Again, I'll. Given how high it is, I'm willing to give it another chance. But it's just when I was re-listening to Diary of a Madman, it was just one of those in one ear, out the other. I'm gonna say the possibility that it maybe one of the reasons why I'm not as receptive to it is. You have on Diary of the Madman, you have Over the Mountain, Flying High Again, and You Can't Kill Rock and Roll. And I think that the highs of those first two songs just, I don't know. I think that I don't know. I think there's a letdown that I feel when I listen to it in that context. But anyway.
See, I guess I'm weird about that record because, like, for me, and I was talking to my brother about this, who actually feels similarly, if I recall. But Over the Mountain was probably the first song I got into off that record, but it's probably like one of my least favorite from the record at this point. And I guess I don't want to say what my other favorites are because they might show up in this draft, but it's just one of the less interesting to me, But I think I want to say two things. A, it's good that you and I are having some divergence in preferences, because I think that makes for a more interesting discussion. Also, speaking of AC/DC, I think that would make for a killer draft too.
Oh, for sure.
So I think and that was another piece of feedback. Like I think the folks who listen to this might want to hear additional bands. So Van Halen was brought up, AC/DC, but then also some more niche stuff like Eric Johnson, which I know you had mentioned as something you would be interested in.
Yeah, not to derail it too much, but I'll just tease the idea of lumping lumping Steve Morse, Eric Johnson, and Joe Satriani into one category and having a top 30 pick of like only instrumentals from them. But
interesting.
Tease that idea. Okay. So I guess I'll go ahead and make my pick.
Yeah. Sixth pick.
And this is a very difficult one because, and I just want to say this round itself is difficult to make as selections because like I'm dealing with a large chunk of songs that I basically like equally, and at any given time we did this draft, these picks could be in a different order. And now at the beginning, we were talking about the whole like songs that we historically appreciate versus ones that we want to listen to right now. My first selection of the sixth round is one that I'm very much into right now, and that is off of No Rest for the Wicked, Devil's Daughter, Holy War.
Ah, interesting. Very good.
And that really does it for me. Is I just love Zakk Wylde's solo in this. I love his solo. It's very, very high performance. A lot of notes, as you know, I appreciate.
Sure.
Speaking in kind of layman's terms, he makes some cool sounds with it. Mm-hmm. Overall, it's just a banger.
Yeah, fucking A. Song kicks ass. I love that record. Yeah. I totally agree that this is a great song. It's a very high performance guitar solo, high performance guitar record, and I would argue a very important guitar record. Made this case before, but a young Zakk Wylde came on the scene in 1988 and really delivered some innovative techniques. Specifically around his unique approach to economy picking in just simple doubles or pairs of notes. He is able to shred in a manner that you don't hear many other guitarists from that era play. In fact, none. You do have some of the more sort of like elite technical players on YouTube and Instagram, Andy James and Rick Graham come to mind, who have sort of mastered this technique, but there aren't many people who are able to do it really well. And so this is the first record that I know of where you really heard somebody doing that kind of speed picking. I wish we could play an example. Maybe we can overlay something, but almost every guitar solo on this record has some version of it. And my next pick is actually another example of that. If you're ready to move on, so I'm going to go ahead and pick Miracle Man off of No Rest for the Wicked, same record, and I'm veering back to the historically favorite list of tracks now. Right? It's probably not the first one I would listen to off the record now, but that's because I've listened to it so many times. And the main reason I spent so much time listening to Miracle Man was the guitar solo. I thought it was just like one of the most like aggressive, exciting guitar solos and unique because of that. I can't do it with my mouth, but that's the same economy picking method that I thought was really innovative and ahead of its time. Miracle Man, cool lyrics too. I think like that whole mode of Ozzy singing, like there's this sort of like I don't know how to even describe it, but he's got a few tracks where he's I guess Mr. Crowley is one, and Mr. Tinker Train. There's some sort of like mysterious or deviant male figure that forms the subject of the song. And I will say that was a huge influence on me writing the track Wizard in the Trees, which is an Ozzy parody that maybe we can talk more about later in the podcast.
Yeah, well, maybe we can end this by doing a performance of Wizard in the Trees. Maybe maybe that's a ticket. I'll say with just a couple quick things about Miracle Man. Just again for my personal Ozzy odyssey is that Miracle Man was the first Zakk Wylde track that I was introduced to, and that like predates No More Tears. So that was the first one. This would have been junior year of high school, I believe. So 2001, 2002.
Okay.
And I also when I listen to songs, what I especially first tracks on albums is I think to myself, let's say I was an Ozzy fan, but instead of being born in 1985, I was born in like 1965, and it's 1988, and you know what? Ozzy has a new album coming out. And it's like I'm waiting in line to get it at the local Sam Goody or whatever. And I get the album, I put it on, and then like the first track is the opening riff to Miracle Man. I can't do it right now, but is a first opening riff, and I just think about like how excited I would be just to hear that opening riff to this song, and then just everything that comes after it. So kind of and I kind of think the same thing. Just to change bands for a second, I kind of think the same thing about like "Fight Fire with Fire" off of "Ride the Lightning" would be, another track of opening track, which would be great. Last comment I'll say is that this is the only Ozzy song that I can think of that has a contemporary lyrical subject matter, meaning.
Yeah.
This song was written at the time where televangelists like Jimmy Swaggart were very popular. Of course, also the Genesis song "Jesus He Knows Me" is about same thing about like kind of these con man preachers. This is the only Ozzy song that has lyrics that I can think of which are tied to a specific phenomenon that's occurring at a specific time. I could be wrong. I'm sure there's other tracks that I'm not thinking of, but this to me is like the clearest example of that.
Yeah. I'm thinking about too, like just he likes to write songs, or he likes whoever's writing a song. There's a lot of Ozzy songs that are just about like some guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Perry Mason and and then again, like another common, subject for his lyrics are corruption, greed, deception amongst popular figures, maybe some kind of backlash against the Christian right, who were very vocal in their opposition to Ozzy and children being able to buy his records. The Marilyn Manson of his day, so Miracle Man,
which of course, I'll get to this when that song is selected later on. So for my selection on this one, I don't believe actually belongs to any album at all, and that is "Back on Earth" is my next selection. Which I believe was an extra track from Osmosis that was only on the Ozman Cometh.
I believe you are right. So I only have it on the Ozman Cometh. It's a good track. It was in my roster for potential picks, so I feel you there. It's a 90s era Ozzy song, mid-late 90s. I'm just going to go ahead and get our list together here.
And this one for me, what appeals to me about this one, it's Ozzy singing, and it's just the melodies of it that he has. I love the opening lyrics, and what death is so final for only the living, the spirit will always remain. And then I wish I knew more about the composition wise. I wish I knew about the the different movements within a song, but just the another dimension, a river of light. Just I don't know. Lyrics, melodies, all about it is really good, and I think this is a track which my enjoyment of it is really driven by Ozzy singing.
Very good. I like it. It's a top pick. This is a good song. It's funny. Like I could say something similar about my next pick. The particular lyrical hook has stuck with me since the first time I've heard it. And this is Time After Time from the record No More Tears. Another sort of like ballady track. And, kind of reminds me of just being in an arena with a bunch of 90s like teenagers and 20-somethings holding up your lighter, listening to Time After Time. Another one with a really good guitar solo, again using that Zakk Wylde technique. But it's got that sort of that depth and ballad feel that we love, that Ozzy was so good at, especially during that era. And one of my favorite tracks off of No More Tears.
Yeah. And to talk about track sequencing, just pulling it up right now, this is the 8th track off of No More Tears. This gets back to my earlier point where just another example, like for some of his top 5 albums, if you just like put it on from start to finish, there's great stuff all the way through.
Yep.
Which again is like kind of one of those self-evident points of like, well, it's a great album. Yeah, of course it is that there's going to be great songs all the way through. But I think it just goes to show the depth of some of his work.
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I also feel like I feel like that's a comment that I made too. I feel like the one I just made is that if this was like camera footage era of us hanging out, that would be one that you would be making fun of me for years after the fact.
What's that?
About like, Time After Time. It might be like further down in the album and the track listing, but still a great song nonetheless. Kind of my observation as self-evident truth of like, instead of the Packers losing that game, wouldn't it have been nice if they won that game? So.
Yeah, that's true. Hey, speaking of which, just a quick sidebar, we're not here to talk about the coronavirus, but I was thinking the other day, we got this whole like COVID-19 thing, and it's really deadly and unprecedented economic downturn. I guess it pretty much sucks, but just imagine for a second that it didn't happen.
Well, if that didn't happen, we would be watching, probably like I'm going to say if that didn't happen, we would be watching, let me think of what day is it. We'd probably watching like game 5 of Bucks Sixers.
Sixers in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it would have been like Bucks would have been up 3-1 and then, at home. Yes. I have thought that as well, and it naturally comes back to the Bucks. You are right.
Would it have been the Sixers or would it have been the Raptors?
So I think the Raptors were the number 2 seed. No, I'm sorry. When I was giving my example, I was thinking that would be the second round. It would be the semifinals.
Okay, yeah, I guess it's only the first week of May still.
Yeah, so we're talking about like either finishing up the second round or just the beginning. I think if it was the Eastern Conference Finals, it probably would have been the Raptors, which I just get nervous thinking about that, even though season's canceled and it's not going to happen. The last year's Eastern Conference Finals, I'm still upset about that.
Yeah, it was drag.
Yeah.
Well,
let's talk about happier stuff.
Right. Like Mike's number 8 pick on the Ozzy draft.
Okay, so I'm going to go to go into the Diary of a Madman well here.
Oh, wow.
And
okay.
This is tricky because there are 3 songs that I could choose here in this one. Mm-hmm. There are 3 songs, and again, if we were to do this exact same thing tomorrow, I might change a different one. Mm-hmm. But I am going to go with Believer off of No More Tears.
Great track. Definitely in my potential top 10 for this draft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and I feel I detect a bit of a Purple Haze influence on just the general rhythm of the song, and it just, I don't know. Again, good solo, and just, start to finish, it's just a tight, groovy song.
Yeah, definitely.
And
Yeah, a
it's
lot of Black Sabbath influence on this record, like more so than on Blizzard of Oz.
mm-hmm.
It's like, I hear it in Believer. I definitely hear it in tracks like You Can't Kill Rock and Roll, and yeah, lots of good stuff going on there.
Yeah, and that's also one where it's I think it's pretty, just the song itself is pretty simple, no frills, but they whoever's the producer of these songs, they just do a good job of adding some effects that just, adding some synthesizer, adding some effects that just like create a great mood to it.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. Well, I'm happy to move into number 9. This one's kind of tough. I've got some close calls. I think that I am going to go with a personal current favorite off of No Rest for the Wicked, which is Fire in the Sky.
Okay.
Very funny song, and like diabolical, carnivalesque Ozzy at his peak. And I'm just imagining him with like a big winding grin singing this song Fire in the Sky. I really wish we could listen to tidbits of these tracks as we talk about them, but yeah, Fire in the Sky off of No Rest for the Wicked, number 9 for me. But there's a current kind of like, there's a bias. Like No Rest for the Wicked is like the record I've been listening to the most, probably because it's like emerged as the most relatively novel. Some of the deeper cuts off that one, I'm giving them a second gander. I think I fell in love with this album again like 3 or 4 years ago when I was on a road trip in my old car that still had a CD player, and I only had like 5 CDs with me, and I didn't have anything that would allow me to plug my iPod in. So I was like just old school listening to CDs in the car, which was cool. And one of the CDs that I had was No Rest for the Wicked. And so I pumped that thing. I also have this on tape, and I've listened to a lot of these songs on cassette, which has been rewarding in its own right. But yep, Fire in the Sky. Do you have the track listing, like to tell what number track that is?
Yeah, keep that theme. That is the 6th track off of No Rest for the Wicked.
Fire in the Sky. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is this is another one too where, as much of an Ozzy fan as I am, he has a lot of songs, and I am not super familiar with every single one, and this is not one that I'm really able to comment on.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. Again, it's sort of a personal one. I don't think it would, this is definitely not conventional wisdom. It really is a more personal one. And I like the subject matter. I like the chorus a lot. And so Fire in the Sky. That's my pick. What about you for number 9?
For number 9, I'm looking at my board here, and as we get to this point, just to make a comment, is that I know that any Jakey Lease era songs that I want, they're just going to be available.
Yeah.
I'm getting a sense that you all are not going to select those, so I can take those whenever you want, whenever I want.
True.
So I think I'll probably say that I think that the next version of this will be it. So I'm going to go with I Just Want You off of Osmosis.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, this is one, again, the enjoyment of this one is just very much driven by the Ozzy's vocals, and I just love the in terms of the lyrics themselves. They are very very Ozzy Osbourne-esque parables, I would say. There are no unwritable wrongs. There are no unsingable songs. It's just a very it's kind of, I would say it's kind of like biblical in that sense. I'm thinking of thinking about the book of Proverbs, that is. But it's like these are like Ozzy's versions of Proverbs.
I definitely agree with you that it's very Ozzy-esque.
Yeah,
It was performed by Ozzy Osbourne.
that would make sense. Yeah, there you go. This is no, but I also, and in terms of some of the emotion, some of the emoting of Ozzy Osbourne, I think there is always there is a certain desperation that kind of comes out at times, and of course I think the title track, "I Just Want You," kind of indicates that a bit. And there's just a certain desperation here, which kind of helps me connect with the song on a more emotional level.
There you go. All right. Mike's ninth pick, "I Just Want You," off of the record Osmosis.
Yeah, we are. This is a very crisp round too. I will comment on that as well. Just to give a quick recap of where we're at in this version of it. So for your backups, you had "You Can't Kill Rock and Roll," "Miracle Man," "Time After Time," and "Fire in the Sky." I have "Devil's Daughter," "Holy War," "Back on Earth," "Believer," and "I Just Want You." So I'm very Zakk Wylde heavy on this particular and the backup so far.
Yeah, it looks like
you?
we both are. Yeah. So I think we both have 3 out of the 4 Zakk Wylde, with the remainder being Randy. I'm actually going back to Randy Rhoads for my 10th pick. I'm going back to good old Blizzard of Oz, and I'm picking "Suicide Solution" as my number 10.
Yeah, that's a good choice.
Very fun song, very irreverent song. Of course, got Ozzy in a lot of trouble. There's some controversy if you've seen the VH1 Behind the Music of Ozzy, which is a famous episode with this sort of representative of a Christian right group insisting that Ozzy was sort of imploring listeners to get the gun and shoot, so to speak. But this is just a really cool song. It's got a great sort of opening riff. Very sort of fun, folksy. "Wine is nice, but whiskey's quicker." "Suicide is quick with liquor." This is great. Almost like a limerick. It's like a demonic little limerick, and it's like part of the roots of like Ozzy is this, not just a sort of like satanic, demonic aesthetic, but also this like little bastard aesthetic. So I think about like, how Ozzy must have been in the 80s, pissing on the Alamo and just like doing stupid shit. And I think about this song as kind of a funny, stupid song, but it also rocks, and it's classic Randy Rhoads. So I'm rounding out round 2 with "Suicide Solution" off of Blizzard of Oz. I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste it.
Well, there you go. Now, in terms of the controversy that surrounded this song, as I don't know how you can actually read the lyrics or listen to the lyrics and conclude anything other than Ozzy is taking his position on this one. His thesis of this song is that alcoholism is bad.
Yeah,
and it can kill you. So and he seems to be coming out against it.
Right. And yet,
yeah,
he continues to struggle, without. Actually, I don't know how long Ozzy's been sober.
Well,
Probably
now
tough number to nail down.
Well, was that when he because it wasn't Behind the Music, he was talking about like being in a bathroom in Las Vegas and like flushing cocaine down the toilet?
Yeah.
Right. Was that like No More Tears era?
I mean, he's had so many relapses. I don't think any of these guys actually stay sober. Ozzy, Steven Tyler, they get, dried out for a while. But I don't know, though. I don't know. He's been going strong for a good while. He's still releasing content that we know nothing about. As we disclosed at the beginning of the first draft episode, we're really not going to be able to talk about much Ozzy content, post Osmosis or post Ozman Cometh, which was, over 20 years ago. but he's been releasing records that whole time.
Yeah, you know what? I might. So my next selection here, I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. You made the comment we're not going to be talking about much stuff post osmosis. There is one post osmosis song which I genuinely like, and I will seek out and listen to, and that is off of Black Rain, 2007, and it's my next selection. I Don't Want to Stop.
Okay, I don't even know if I put that as like a possible selection. Black Rain. I don't want to stop. I've heard that song. I know how it goes. I don't want to stop. Okay, so if you buy Black Rain, the current expanded edition, you actually get I Don't Want to Stop and I Don't Want to Stop live. So I'm assuming you want the studio version.
Yes, I would want studio version. I Don't Want to Stop. Again, I think the guitar riffs. I think the guitar riffs generally rock. I think the lyrics of the song are pretty funny. It's very much, again, this is very much kind of like desperate Ozzy. Nobody understands me. Like I am confused. Like I'm on the crazy train and nobody can help me. That's kind of the theme. He has some very good lyrics that I like that are kind of funny. It's like with the second verse. Why don't they ever listen to me? It's just a one-way conversation. And then also there's another another lyric, which again, the way he sings with the melody of so many religions and only one God, I don't need another savior, which is just, in my mind, that's one of my personally favorite vocal hooks of Ozzy. The too many religions and only one God. I don't need another savior. Again, just great vocal hook. I think the lyrics are classic Ozzy, and I think they're amusing, and they, again, great lyrical melody. And I think that was 2007, so he would have been close to 60 when he came out, and it's nice that song came out, and it's nice to know that even at 60 years old, Ozzy's still able to lay down a good track.
Of course, that only one God that he's referring to is Lemmy. So that's
Lemmy, of course, yeah. Lemmy is God.
Right? There you go. There you go.
That's an Airhead reference for all of you kids at home.
So we have done it. We have drafted our first round, our golden picks here in yellow. And the second round, as you can see, we'll go ahead and we'll make those orange. And we will get to the deep cuts, the role players, the pinch hitters next week on round 3 of the Ozzy podcast. We will also discuss some trades that we may want to make. I know I've had my eye on Goodbye to Romance. I'm a little jealous of Believer as well. Got my eye on that, so perhaps we can trade. I like the fact that in general our tastes, though we both love Ozzy, more than anything, our tastes within his catalog vary quite a bit. Mm-hmm. We have some different ideas. We fought over No More Tears, Goodbye to Romance, pretty obvious ones. But these second stringers have been I don't think we were really competing for a whole lot, maybe other than Miracle Man and Believer. So this has been good.
Yeah, I would certainly certainly agree with that. I could not have said it better myself. And I think that once we get to the role players, the specialists, I think that I think we're going to even see a bit of a wider divergence there. I'll say one thing that did surprise me, just again for my own selections a little bit, was there are a few tracks off of Bark at the Moon and Ultimate Sin, which to this day I will put on and listen to and I'll enjoy. And I thought that one or two of them might find their way into the second round, but then once we got into selecting, I kind of realized that they are definitely more specialists than they are the true Steve Kerr, Manu Ginobili backups.
Sure. Yeah. And, I think we'll talk about the method behind the madness when we get the full draft picture in place. But I like where we are now. I think we've got a good sort of swath of Ozzy that we've covered here, and lots more to come.
Yeah, well, that is correct. Well, everybody, thank you for listening. Thank you